Hi, I'm Joe Wells, and I want to welcome you to the Hey Joe Show. We're joined today by Rob and Mary as we discuss secrets to 50 years of marriage. You know, I want to thank the Light Network for allowing the Hey Joe Show to be a part of that family of podcasts. And of course, I want to invite you to check out the numerous shows on that network. But we are so grateful to the individuals at the lightnetwork.tv. Check them out if you haven't already done so. And of course, check out the Hey Joe Show on all your podcast platforms that you might be able to visit, and like and subscribe to our podcast, if you will. You know, this season, we're going to attempt to do something that is in fitting with the youth, family, and culture theme, but it's going to deal with the most important relationship, at least personally, within your home, and that is the marriage between mom and dad. You know, it's been said before that that relationship really has a major impact on the children that are being reared in that home. And of course, we've gone to marriage seminars that have taught us that. We've had sermons that have taught us that. You've listened to other podcasts that have taught you that. And so what I would like to do, instead of just creating another podcast that it's, here's a guy who's up kind of spouting off some facts and things like that, I want to talk to people who have been there and people who have done that, you know, and obviously you ask yourself, well, who would that be? Who are the individuals who've been there and done that? And so for this season of the Hey Joe Show, I kind of set that bar at 50 years. As I travel around and as I speak, when I meet people who have been married 50 plus years, I usually will ask them one question, and it's quite funny. I'll ask the husband and the wife separately at times because I don't want the husband looking at the wife and saying, okay, can I say what really needs to be said, or do I have to say something else? And sometimes I get pretty funny answers. Probably the most funny answer I got was an elderly gentleman who told me that it's sometimes you need to go to the garage. It's okay to go to the garage. And I thought to myself, what was he talking about? Why would anybody need to go to the garage? And I settled on two things because he really didn't, you know, kind of describe or explain it. I settled on it's okay for you to have your own hobbies, or sometimes, you know what, maybe in the heat of the moment, the discussion gets to a point where emotions are involved and you need to kind of just go to your separate corners. Either way, a guy who's been married 50 plus years, he's learned some things over the years. And so I, as a younger guy who want to make that 50-year mark, if the Lord allows us to live that long, I want to know, what does it take to get there? And so what I've done is, in this season of the Hey Joe Show, I've interviewed people who've been married 50 plus years. And in this first episode that I want you to take a look at, I interviewed Rob and Mary. Now, Rob and Mary are very dear to Aaron and I because they are Aaron's parents. And obviously, when you look at people that you appreciate, you look at individuals that you get to look at and learn, not just when they want you to learn, but when you're learning, just like our kids learn from us in general observation, you see traits about that marriage that you appreciate. And then when you sit down and you interview them, you learn some of the reasons behind maybe the behavior. Well, that's what I want you to see in this one today. And after you view this, I want to come back to you and wrap it up. But go ahead and take a listen to this, take a look at this video, and see what Rob and Mary have to say are the secrets that they've learned to 50 plus years of marriage. All right, so I'm joined for this class and this video by Rob and Mary. Rob and Mary, how are y'all doing today?
Great.
Wonderful.
Super.
Very good. Thanks for coming on. I know maybe you're a little nervous about the interview, but there's no reason to be. How long have y'all been married?
We've been married 51 years and
And a half.
and a half, I guess. Yeah.
51 years and a half. I had one individual told me the months, the weeks, and the days. And the idea was that when you're counting it like that, that's pretty good that y'all know, the details of where you're at. So 51 years, right?
Yes.
All right, 51 years. So let me ask you, how did it all begin? Take us back to that first time where the spark was lit, that you saw each other, and maybe it was not a spark moment, but eventually it grew into a spark moment. So tell us where it all started. How old were you when you first met? How old were you when you got married? Anything like that?
I don't think we were quite 16. In fact, I know we weren't, because I still have the bracelet he gave to me with my name on it for my 16th birthday. And she started coming to church with a friend of hers. So that's where we met. It's at church.
Met at church. All right. So Miss Mary, when you saw him, there was love at first sight and you couldn't take your eyes off of him, right?
Wrong.
I actually thought she was older than I was, and I thought she was kind of going to be dating this other guy that was 20 something. But anyways, I thought she was beyond my reach.
Yeah, he was trying to hook me up with an older man because my friend was older. So he thought I was as old as she was. So no, I thought he was a pest at first. Too friendly.
Too friendly. So how did he win you over? I'm curious then.
Well, I don't know that he did it.
Yeah, I don't know how either.
Actually, my friend Susie and my friend Donna he asked me out and I didn't want to go, and they felt sorry for, come on, Mary Ann, go out with that poor boy. Come on, Mary Ann. So finally I gave in.
So they twisted your arm. This is good to know. This is really good to know.
And they're excited to this day that they still did that.
In the meantime, I had started driving, and then I almost immediately had a traffic accident, got my license taken away. So we had to go everywhere on a date with someone else taking it.
That's not bad, though. That's not bad. But eventually that gets to a point that you don't want to do that. So y'all met at 16. And then when did you get married? How old were y'all when you got married?
I had been 18 by a month, and she was going to be...
I was 17.
And she was going to be 18 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more months.
Okay, so 18 and 17 then.
Yeah, right out of high school.
4 more months. 4 more months, yeah.
Okay, so at 18 and 17, what did you know about marriage?
Nothing.
Just what we'd seen from our folks.
Yeah.
Pretty much that's it. What we've seen in our families.
Yeah. So now 51 years later, though, for people who are watching this in this class, and the reality is it's a beautiful testament to what can happen in marriage for two young people who would admit they didn't know anything or not a lot. But to still be sitting here today after 51 years of marriage. So let me ask you this, real simple. I would love to know 3 secrets to 50 plus years of marriage. So I'm going to ask you individually. I don't know who wants to go first, Rob or Mary. But if you could give, you've learned something over the years that you didn't know when you first got married. What would you say are secrets, right? But key fundamental things that you learned that are crucial to those who want to make 50 years or more of marriage?
Well, in some of our talking, I think Rob and I both thought of the same thing. And it's something that Rob said to me when we decided to get married. So go ahead and tell Joe what you said.
Well, Mary hadn't been a Christian that long. And so when you asked, what did I know about marriage? I'd gotten plenty of Bible classes because my folks were converted when I was about 4 years old. So I'd grown up in the church, having really good Bible school teachers. And so I'd gotten quite a few lessons from the Bible. And one of the things that was really drilled into me is that this is it. It's for a lifetime. And so Mary and I talked about that commitment. I was concerned because she hadn't been raised in a Christian home, and we we had to be on the same page with that.
All right. So number one, being committed. This is it, right?
Yes.
All right. What's another one?
Okay. Go ahead. It's your turn.
Well, I think one thing is you don't let others interfere in your marriage. You don't share your marriage secrets. You don't discuss your marital problems, because you're going to get a lot of advice from people, and that advice can take you down the wrong road. It could take you down to the divorce road.
In other words, you want to be careful who you share it with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, some of that may go back to we tell people things that we expect them to empathize and sympathize with us and not necessarily be objective. And so that's a great point. Don't go around, the things that happen in your marriage, it's okay that they happen in your marriage. Of course, there are times that if you need to tell a counselor or, an authority of some sort, but that's not what you're talking about. So, all right. So commitment, and don't talk to everybody about things going on in your marriage. What's another one? Do you have another one by chance?
You want me to just finish my three, or you want
to y'all? This is great. You're demonstrating to us.
Well, let me do my second one. So, we've been married about 20 something years, and we attended a marriage seminar by Jack Exum, the old time preacher, and we'll never forget. He said, "I'm going to teach you a song. This is an easy song, and you'll never forget it." And the song is, "Things change." That's the song. And he was right. We've never forgot it. And so
things aren't the same at 51 years of marriage that they were at year one of marriage.
They're not the same now than they were when we learned the song. Right. Yeah. There are some things that never change. Sometimes that's for good and sometimes that's for bad. But there's in our lives, there's been constant change.
A lot of changes.
Yeah. So how do you navigate that change?
Well, a lot of it had, I moved her quite a bit, and she was willing to move. A lot of it had to do with work.
She said, "Sorta."
Sometimes she wasn't too wanting to go, but she did.
They always turned out to be some of our best experiences in our marriage. The moves.
Right.
After a while, I didn't begrudge them so much, because I always knew something good was going to come out of this move.
I'm not as good at making friends and close friends in different places as Mary is, but Mary's got friends in 4 or 5 states. I mean, good friends that she's still in contact with. And
so would it be possibly to be said, things change, expect it, but don't fear it? Because as you mature, you understand that just brings another opportunity.
Right. There's something good there's always something good that comes from it. And maybe something bad can come from it, but there's always something good in there also.
I like that. All right. So that's 3. Do you have one, Miss Mary, to share?
Sometimes I think it's, and I don't know if we're the greatest at this, but I've felt like we've done this in the past, is sometimes when he's down about something, I got to be positive and try to put a positive spin on whatever that downness is, if that's losing a job or a move changed or finances, whatever. And then I know there's times I'm down about something that Rob has tried to be more have me see the more positive side to things. So it's good to be there when one's down, and that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Total sense. I like that. That means you're aware of each other too. And in order to be aware of one another's disposition, you got to know those little details, right? So in some way you can't know unless you have spent time studying. So I love that. That means you're always be aware of your influence in that situation too. Great point.
Can I share one more point with you this morning?
Yeah, go ahead. I would love you.
That's something.
Keep them coming.
That you're talking about things we've learned, and I wish I had thought this way, and I learned it later in life. And actually, there's somebody I'm close to that's really helped me understand that your marriage has to be intentional, and raising a family has to be intentional. You've got to have not just the goal, but you've got to plant some mile markers and some guideposts.
I love that advice. That's good advice.
I figured you might.
I love that. No, in all seriousness, you can't just take it as it comes always, right? And of course, on the other side, you can't plan everything. But what you're saying is approach it with purpose.
That's right.
I love that. So, all right. Do you have another one though? One more, if you have it.
Well, I want to back up to what I was saying about not letting others into your marriage. But you have to, how do I want to put this? You have family, you marrying each other's family also. Mm-hmm. And so you have to let family in and be a part of family. Don't hate his family or him hate my family, or because there's some bad marriage struggles when you get two sets of families that don't like each other, or I refuse to go to his family stuff, or he refuses to go to mine. I think that can do some major damage in a marriage.
I agree with that.
Consider each other's family.
I love that. It's hard when if you're talking bad about somebody else's family and that person's saying, "Look, I understand my own family's faults. I don't need you to pile on to that," because it really, then you start taking it personal yourself. So that's a really good point of clarification. Good job. I love that.
Rob and I both have been fortunate. We both get along with each other's families, and but I've had friends that it's caused a lot of destruction in their marriages.
Yeah. Well, hey, those are awesome. I don't want to cut you off in any way, shape, or form because you guys are on a roll. So is there maybe one more that you'd written down that you've thought of? Maybe you didn't write it down, but you're like, if there's a person who's been married 15, 20 years in this class, this is the one thing that I want them to be left with.
We attended a Paul Faulkner seminar years ago. And, he and Burkeen used to do marriage enrichment seminars. And he said something that at the time really was like head scratching to me. And that because we'd heard so much about, that you need to be united as one. But he brought out the point that you also have to consider that you are both individuals in a marriage. It's about we, but in the we, you have to remember that there's always also you and me. There's two individuals in this. So that has to be, that helps bring the we closer together when remembering that we are individuals in this marriage.
I love it. In God's wisdom, he said, I'm going to put two individuals with different personalities and backgrounds together, right, in marriage. Uh-huh. And that's going to be a blessing.
Yeah.
Of course, that takes work, but you guys are living proof that it definitely can be and is a blessing as long as we're willing to grow and keep God first. So thank y'all so much. Y'all have been a blessing to us. And I don't know, I just really appreciate you both. I know you know that. I love you both. And thank you for coming on and doing the interview for me.
Thank you. We love you too.
I do appreciate Rob and Mary so much. And just going back through that video, that was a funny time and a learning time for me. And of course, very special with it being my in-laws that were there. But, some of the things that Rob and Mary said, I want to kind of bring out to you and just make sure that before this episode ends, that you kind of hone in on some of the things that they said. And of course, they said something that is very consistent with individuals who are married 50 plus years. And that is that this is a lifelong commitment. When they got into marriage, and of course, I know culturally speaking, maybe things were a little different, but of interest to you is the age that Rob and Mary were when they entered into marriage. They were in their late teens. And of course, many today would look at teenagers and say they're not mature enough to enter into marriage. And maybe so. I mean, think about what's changed over the last 50 years in our approach to teenagers and our expectations of teenagers. And so that was a different time, a different culture. I get it, but still a consistent answer. And that was that this is a lifelong commitment. Some have even said before that divorce was not a part of our vocabulary. And when you got into marriage, it was not a matter of how long are we in this? It was a matter of you're in this until death do us part. And so that is something that Rob and Mary also mentioned. They also said this, that you need to be very careful when you're discussing your marriage with those who are outside of your marriage. And I appreciated that. And that doesn't mean, if you need counseling, that you shouldn't seek counseling or things like that. But what I thought was quite interesting is the marriage is a very special covenant relationship that's supposed to be between two people, not between two people and a best friend, or two people and a mother, or two people and a person's father. And you would think to yourself, well, why is that such a big deal? I mean, who cares if individuals share secrets? It's because vulnerability is crucial in a relationship where you get to that level of intimacy. Where an individual can just be themselves. They can tell you their deepest dreams, maybe their deepest concerns. You see them in their most vulnerable situations. And you see them sometimes even in situations that they themselves might be ashamed of. And what happens is relationship killers come along when individuals violate the boundary of that intimacy. When they just try to bring in other people into the marriage by way of siding with me, by way of agreeing maybe on an argument or making my emotions feel validated. And what Rob and Mary would bring out, and I thought it was quite interesting, is sometimes not only does that kill the marriage in the sense of the closeness, but you never know what dynamic that can create when it comes to the spouse who was being talked about now all of a sudden being around those friends or being around those family members. And so I appreciate what they said, is that it's not a matter of if you need counseling, you can't seek counseling or anything along those lines. It was about this idea of don't forget the boundaries that exist within this unique covenant relationship. One other thing that they said, and I thought this was great, was you need to support your spouse during the changes within life. You're individuals. That was mentioned. You're not, clones of one another. You're going to have different likes and different interests, and you're not always going to handle things in the same manner. And that's okay. But what happens in those marriages that make it 50 years is that you learn to appreciate those individual components, but you also learn how to support your spouse during challenging times and during changes in life. There's as much as we may not like to admit it, that as we age, we're not the same physically, emotionally, even mentally that we were during the first 5 years of marriage. Hormones change, life has thrown curveballs, and maybe that has caused some emotional damage over time. And it's not always by the spouse. Sometimes it's by work, sometimes it's by family, sometimes it's by friendships. And the reality is all of those play into who we become as we age. And what I did appreciate about one of the things that Rob and Mary said is that you learn to support your spouse during those challenging times and during the times that you're changing in your life. You're changing in your hormones, you're changing in your work situations or whatever it may be. Now, all of that, though, plays back into this. You've got to know your spouse individually. Those marriages that last 50 plus years, and I don't mean last like a ball and chain, like I can't get out of this because I know that God says he hates divorce. He does hate divorce. That's not even a debate. But the idea is this, that God didn't intend for marriage to be a ball and chain. I don't even like that illustration when it comes to marriage. He intended marriage to be a blessing. Don't forget, this was God's answer for Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, that it's not good for man to be alone. If all he intended for was man to have a dog, then why didn't he just say, hey, there's a canine over there, go get the canine? That's not what he said. He's the one that said, hey, this is the answer for what's not good. I will take a bone from the side of man, craft that bone into a woman, and present the woman to the man. And so at the end of the day, you've got to remember this, that God didn't make a clone when he made your spouse, and he wanted you to be blessed by your spouse. Well, that means you've got to learn to be a blessing to them as well. And one of the ways is you learn who they are and you learn how to support them during those challenging times. Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in today. I love Rob and Mary. This entire season, we're going to have episodes like this. And I hope that you'll make notes, or maybe you'll go back and revisit these, or maybe you're an individual who has influence with young couples and you're like, hey, there's an episode out there that Joe did on the Hey Joe Show that addressed different struggles or different pointers to those who make it 50 plus years. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how you choose to use this. And of course, I would love for you to reach out to us on our social media platforms, or to leave a comment maybe underneath this video, or even email me at joe@kyopublications.org and let us know how you think that you can utilize these videos, these interviews, as you not only work within your own marriage, but maybe you help influence other people to the glory of God. Thanks again to the lightnetwork.tv for allowing the Hey Joe Show to be a part of that wonderful platform. I want to invite you to kyopublications.org to check out all of our wonderful resources. And of course, like and subscribe to the Hey Joe Show on your favorite podcast, because in doing so, you're going to help us move up in the rankings to reach people that maybe we would have not otherwise had the opportunity to be introduced to. That's all I have for today. God bless. If you like that clip, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell so that you'll be notified every time a new episode releases.